So we got one question from Milwaukee County. Is there anything in particular you want us to cover since you're the first one in? We'll give you dibs.
Yeah, I'm super new to the website permissions, so I just don't even know enough to have questions just yet. It's kind of just a little learning as I go. I'm trying to figure things out, but hopefully, just getting familiar with the process will, generate some questions.
Okay. So actually, I know we have Brett is on today, and Jerry too, some of our technical people on permissions, and maybe we could just do a quick tutorial on setting up permissions. Would that be useful?
I mean, I have permission now to use the website.
Ah,
So my job is to put things on it and just kind of as a backup person, just to help out. And at least monthly, I'm going on and adding PDFs and linking them and opening up different documents. So I'm just new to that. This will be my second month.
okay. So you're a content manager. You've been tasked with which department you work for?
And
Aging.
disability services.
Okay. All right. I see Ashley has joined us with Employ Milwaukee. So you got a couple questions. So we're going to cover today one topic which might be of interest to you, which is how to make my page look better. That's kind of an overarching question from Milwaukee County submitted that. And also we're going to go a little bit if one of our clients joins us, ask questions about dealer locators. And the other one was on how to publish content so people can preview it without seeing. So that might be relevant to you also, Lori. Ashley just joined us. Anything particular on your and you'd like us to cover?
No, I'm kind of just listening in for today.
Okay. What is your role and what do you have to do? Lori shared that she has been charged with putting content on and updating pages and adding PDFs. Is there anything in particular that you work on?
I kind of just do everything. So yeah, loading content, troubleshooting, updating pages, creating new pages, all of it.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. All right. I guess we'll wait one more minute, see if anybody else joins us. Otherwise, we'll I think the main topic then we'll start with Jenna. She's going to do a little show and tell of how to. The one question we did get was how to make pages look better. So as we're going through there, I think we're going to touch on the elements that you can put on a page. So it's a little bit more advanced page management as opposed to some of the basics, but maybe pick up some tips of what's going on there. So I guess why don't we jump in, Jenna? And the question that came in from Tibber at Milwaukee County was, we have a page, a transportation page on the site, and how do we make it look better? And so she's not online here yet, but we did take a peek at what we assumed was the page that she was talking about. I'm going to share for 1 second, then I'll let you share. So let me do this. Let me share here. I'm going to come on down. Oops, we got to click that. And so Milwaukee County, this is the page we think she's talking about. And so Jenna, we have a hero image on the top with some text overriding the hero image, introducing the department. We have a collection of quick links and just laid out without a whole lot of styling. Inside there, we have some social media icons over here. And then basically some blocks of text, not a whole lot of stuff, lists, blocks of text. Here whoever laid this page out, tried to do 2-column approach to put some stuff on there. Then we go into what we call a stripe of information. So each one of these, this is a very large stripe. Quick links is a stripe. The vision text over here is called a stripe. And then when it changes the background, we typically have that as a new stripe, even though it doesn't have to be. And so inside of here, we have a couple calls to action, some things that you can do. And then we have another stripe to subscribe to the auction updates. Actually, we're not done with stripes. A blue stripe with some small text. So that might be an issue. I would say a little bit of a usability thing. This is kind of lost in and it just invisible in the middle over here. Another stripe with some basic information, some uneven boxes over here in a slider. We call this a slider, with other ways that you can gauge in transportation, something about the airport, and then we're getting into the footer information down here. So I'll stop sharing. Jenna, what would you do with that page to make it look better? What are some of the options?
Sure. Let me share a prototype that I put together that kind of has similar content. So it has a quick links section, and then a lot of list styles, and just ways to kind of break up that content to be a little bit more balanced. So give me 1 second while I remember how to share my screen. Oh, there it is. Okay. Promise I've done this before.
We have worked in lots of different sharing apps.
Okay. Are you seeing the prototype?
Yep, we are. Yep.
Okay.
So this is for a
Perfect.
government, quasi-government agency up in Canada, CISA, and the social services for employer association. So
Yeah. So this isn't at their actual website right now or anything. This is a prototype that I built that's a little interactive to kind of show them where they can go. So it's a clean professional design that just really leverages the use of white space to allow simple design details to stand out more. And so one thing that I always say is that good design is really in these little details. And I also always like to draw attention to one of the main benefits of website design, like over print design, for example, and that's the ability to add some movement. So strong hover effects or interactive elements are a really nice way to kind of help draw the user in and make them engage a little bit more with your site.
what's a hover effect? What's a hover effect? What does that mean?
Sure. So like for a button, we have a simple hover effect here. Down here, you can see it turns and then that arrow moves. Here, it kind of gets the blue overlay. And another example that I have, there's some stronger hover effects where we have like a card style. So it's just like a hover effect is just a really nice way to add movement and also indicate that something's clickable for your users.
So I'm going to put you a little on the thing. I don't want to get too much into Titan, but how hard is it to add hover effects when you're inside of Titan? What has to happen in the cut up of the front end development for the template? So we have to put some JavaScript on the page, some snippets, and then the developer has to go and put it in there. Do they manage this through the workstation, or is this something the front end people have to do to put in there?
Well, with the use of the content library, it can be managed through the workstation because the hover effects should be built in to the, as one of the design elements in the style guide, and then be able to reuse them in the content library that we have now. So there should not be a ton of additional work when it comes to adding the content to your site. All the tools should be there.
Yeah. So actually, I'll let you get back to a second. But in Milwaukee
Sure.
County, I don't know how robust of a content library they have built up or is available to them. So that might be one of the things that could be something you could ask your managers for, to be able to say, how do we add more of this stuff into the content library? So that's a key feature of Titan that was added a couple of versions ago. And it allows you to build up what Jen is talking about with all these special effects, to build them kind of pre-built modules all ready to go. And then you drop them on the page and modify the text and other stuff.
Yep.
So that's how you can take advantage of some of those things. So it's kind of readily available in Titan if you're taking advantage of the content library. Otherwise, you have to build it. It's a little bit more work, but you can build it from scratch. All right, back to you, Jen.
Right. So like in this example too, we have a slider at the top, and then you can see instead of sliding, it kind of zooms in and out a little bit, which is just slightly different and unexpected from conventional sliders. So it has a little bit of interest and then adds that movement. And then in this section right below the slider, it's actually a really nice example of how layout can play a big role in making your pages more interesting and engaging. So the content here was provided to me as just like a simple list of links. And I think we saw that on the Milwaukee County example too. So I could have just dropped them on the page as a linked list like we previously saw, but instead I used a link style that has a little bit more movement on hover, And then I put an image in the middle to help break it up and make it a little bit more interesting. And then one thing I want to say about imagery is that I really like to use images that incorporate the brand colors a little bit more. So here this lady is wearing a blue jacket and it just fits in really nice with the brand colors. It ties in well and it feels cohesive. So just kind of re-envisioning how you can display links on a layout can really make a difference to help improve the design. Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Sorry, I lost my mouse. There it is. Okay. And then let's see, what else did I want to call out? And then right here, again, we're breaking up the content by adding nice imagery. So imagery is just like a really nice way to help make your websites more exciting. But one note is, I want to say, don't force bad images. So if you don't have good images, then we have to work around that because using bad images is going to just hurt your brand and your design more than not using any image. So you just want to make sure that you have good, high quality images to use. Because if you don't, then don't use anything because it can really hurt your design if you have like a grainy or just a bad image in general. And then in this section, so we have this nice image. There's also a little bit of a texture behind here. And I will say that using images can really help break the readability of the content to a nicer length. So if I did have this image here and I had the who we are span the full width of the page, the readability of that's really hard on the eyes because it has to like scroll back and find its spot a little bit wider than when you have content that's a little bit tighter like this. It's just a lot easier to read as well. So that's like an added benefit of trying to find ways to show your layout without just spanning paragraphs of content the full width of your web page. And then here in this new section, you know, sometimes it's hard to find images on, you know, what you have access to. So if you don't have good images, you should use them sparingly. So here we're not forcing the use of image for every single news story that they have. We're just showing it in the 2 featured stories here. So this client in particular just was worried and concerned about having to find and maintain and manage so many images. So if you have the same concern, then just find ways to kind of sprinkle them in where that's most impactful, but not having to rely on imagery for like every area of your website design. And then here we see a little bit of overlapping where we have this call to action of this, you know, report that's now available over this image that kind of goes a little bit on top. And it's just nice to kind of bring in overlapping when you can, even though it's really subtle, because it just kind of breaks that conventional layout a little bit more. Granted that this overall one is very structured and grid-based. So just finding little details like that just kind of help it stand out and make it a little bit more interesting as well. So I'm going to go to the about page for these guys. So the previous design here was just content without any additional design elements, and it was also like really, really long. So I think it was like 5 pages when pasted into a Word document. So things I did to make this web page more interesting, besides just adding imagery, was pulling out statistics when I could. So these stats that you see,
you read the content, and this wasn't previously separated like this, but this was embedded in the text.
Yeah, so if you read the paragraph above it, you can kind of see where I pulled the text or where I got these statistics from. And it's fine to leave it in here for the user to read and get a little bit more background of it. But when you can pull them out like this, it helps break up the text and also draw attention to that. So if you're burying your statistics within your paragraph content, find different ways to pull them out. And this is just a prototype, but ideally this would be like a number counter in a lot of cases, where when the user either loads the page or scrolls down to it, you would see the numbers count up to add that additional little bit of movement, which is very subtle, but really a kind of a nice touch. And again, design is in the details, so doing little things like that's really nice.
A number counter is, you would scroll to this page and it would go 0, 10, 100, 200.
Mhm.
And so it would kind of roll up to 200.
Yes.
Got
Exactly.
it. Okay. And that's just fairly, again, this is maybe a Sydney question has joined us. That's a fairly simple behavior to enable if you got the content library where that behavior in the JavaScript has been embedded to do that. And, yeah, Sydney's online, but I'm not sure she can hear us. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
That's right. I mean, it is something that we can definitely set up for anybody on various websites. Yeah.
Okay.
And then just another quick note, if you don't have a ton of images, it's okay to reuse them. So this image you saw on the home page, but that section of text took you to this page. So then using the same image here, I think is okay because it helps your users understand, oh yeah, I'm on the right section. It's the same page, it's the same image. So it adds that level of cohesion too to that user experience.
Mm.
And then down here, again, this was just kind of buried in paragraph text, but it seemed to be an important concept carried throughout their content. So instead of leveraging images, what I did here was added icons. It's just another visual way to kind of help break up the page again without leveraging too much imagery. And so, and also in this case, it makes it very easy to scan these different categories that they refer to a lot if you actually read the content of the rest of the pages of community living, Indigenous child and family, and general services. So just finding iconography really helped break this up a little bit more as well and just made it a lot more scannable.
And the icons, are those SVGs or are those some other type of icon? Where does one find a collection of icons like that?
Yeah, so you can use Font Awesome is like a really popular one. We use a resource called Flaticon, and you can download the icons in any format. So you can download it in SVGs, PNGs, or even JPEGs. But for website, we recommend the SVGs, especially if they're going to, if the iconography is going to have some sort of hover effect or like an element of engagement moving forward, then it needs to be the SVG so you can manipulate the CSS.
Yeah, so let me
that.
that SVG is a different type of graph. Everybody's used to JPEGs and PNGs, and you use those. And SVG is a graphic type. It's really small. It's actually a description of how to draw something in a file as opposed to the actual pixels. It's a vector file. Simple vector graphic is what SVG stands for. And so they're really tiny. But what's beautiful about them is you can make them any size, and they will automatically scale up. Where if you take a JPEG and you make a thumbnail version of it and you scale it up, it'll get all pixelated and it'll look terrible. So SVGs are smart enough to know how to be bigger or smaller without losing any resolution. So it's actually not a newer technology, but it's more people are using it on websites. So that's just a little deep dive, a rabbit hole. So I'll come back up. Back to you, Jenna.
Yeah. So you can see here, this is like another, it's like a card style, but it's actually like another list style. So you can always just use bullet points for lists, but icons can really help aid in just creating a more interesting layout for lists. And again, this right here spaces the content out better, so it doesn't feel so overwhelming and it's easier to scan, and it provides a different layout than if we just had. You can see that this text up here does span the full width. So if we just had that on the entire page, you can see how that would feel overwhelming. So finding different layout tricks like this to help break your content up just makes it really a lot more easier for the user to scan, and it looks a lot more nice when you add these visual elements to it as well. And another trick I have is if we scroll down to this section right here, you'll notice that there's like an image in the background of the row. This image just kind of adds a level of depth and dimension to the website. Otherwise, it might feel a little bit too flat. And I just want to point out that the content of this image is less important because it's not really the focal point of the row. So it puts a little bit less pressure on you to find the perfect image to use here, because you can see this image on top here is drawing more attention. So again, just a nice little way to add depth to help your website not feel so flat.
You could scroll up. I wanted to make a point on your bulleted lists here, up a little bit further. So right there, human resources, labor relations, where you have a bunch of bullets right in the middle. Yeah. Yep. So here is a nice way. This also was text that was just in paragraph format where they wanted to convey all this. But when you put stuff into bulleted lists, it makes it more approachable because people will scan the first line or two. Unfortunately, they don't read everything. But if you break it up into bullets, it calls attention. It says, oh, we have 9 really important things that you should pay attention to. And people will give each one of those things a little bit of a glance, and maybe they'll read the whole thing, but probably not. But if you word them correctly, you can get the most important words in the first line. What are you trying to convey in that bullet? So the art of writing bulleted lists goes into writing it in such a way that emphasizes the key point in the first line of the bullet. And as people scan through it, they're more likely to absorb all of the information that you're hoping to convey, as opposed to if it's a big paragraph, they're going to read the first paragraph or two and then skip the rest of it. So having key distinct thoughts in here is a nice thing. And bullets is a great way to call and emphasize what are the key points. But there's also discipline in how you write it, which helps usability.
And to kind of add on to what Pat just said there, if I had the flexibility to improve this even just a skosh more, what I would have done is, instead of just having these bullets of paragraphs of content, is I might have given it like a little bit of a heading to introduce it as well. So if this is like about collective bargaining, I just grabbed 2 words from the paragraph, so can't tell you for sure that's what it's about. Then we would say collective bargaining in like an H3 here. And so that it makes the scannability even a little bit more easy too, because you would just read the headings and then read the paragraph of what you were most interested in or what you were looking for. So I think like this, for example, right down here. So I have these cards, and we might not, if we didn't have the headings, it would just be like little chunks of text, but having the funding, litigation, grievance meetings, it gives you a little bit more insight really quickly as to what that content's about. So you can make the decision whether, as a user, if it pertains to you and you want to read it or not. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And then just kind of doing different variations of lists can keep it interesting. So again, here's what I was talking about by adding these little headings. And then accordions, tabs, and FAQ blocks are really great when you have a lot of content and you're trying to condense or consolidate it so the page isn't incredibly long. But you can only use this kind of approach if the content's related somehow. You don't want to just like throw in random content here for the users to click through. So here, our main publications include, and then it's different areas where they create publications, and then it has a little bit of description text about that. But all this content's a little bit more related, but it works here, and it's just a really nice way to kind of consolidate large amounts of content when needed.
Quick question for Sydney on that particular accordion FAQ block. Sydney, is this a style that's built into Titan that's readily implemented, or how much customization is required to put like a little block like this enabled for clients?
Sure. It's absolutely built into Titan. It doesn't always look exactly like this. And so a version of the FAQ block is in everybody's instance, but it doesn't always look exactly like this one. Or I shouldn't say a version of the FAQ block in an accordion. There's also the tabs and the standard, but those are always there, but they don't always look exactly like this.
And so to make it, so you need a little bit of Northwood's front end development to give it whatever, any particular look and feel, or there's kind of a default out of the box accordion thing. Would it work in a column like this where you have 2 columns?
It would. Yeah, out of the box it would. And the differences are minor. In this case, this stripe has a gray background. The box happens to be white. You wouldn't necessarily have that. You might not have the plus minus. You might have sort of arrows for the icon. They might
up, down arrows, yeah.
Right. They're all sort of simple differences.
And those are, to affect those differences, that's a change in the CSS. Yeah. And that's, again, something we can do for you, or you can learn how to do it, but that's a little bit more advanced. So it's and then let me just take it to the next step. If you were to build up a block like this for CISA, once it's in there, then anybody could use this with the exact way it looks, with the white background, with the plus, minus icons, with the hover effect of the darker and minus when it's open. That would be available in the library, in the content library inside of Titan, and anybody could drop it onto any page inside of the website and change the content, and then you'd have that available. So once it's in the library and done, you can use it over and over and over again, and very simply just drop it onto the page. Jenna.
Okay. Again, introducing a little bit of overlap here with icons. It's a lot of the same elements just being laid out slightly different to keep it cohesive, but also interesting. So it's really just playing with all the elements that your brand has and that was created for your design in kind of just an engaging way. So I want to switch gears over to this. Everybody see the Milwaukee Public Schools example?
Yep.
Okay. So this design's a little bit more fun and plays around with shapes and overlapping a lot more than the previous example. And it's also fun if you have the ability to play with your images to kind of break out from that rectangular shape, as we're seeing right here with this high school student. And then in particular with this design, there's a lot of curves and just elements that help it feel less boxy, which is like a common complaint I get, is that people are like, oh, I just don't want my website to feel like a bunch of boxes. In order to kind of avoid that scenario, you have to play around with shapes a little bit more, bring in overlapping, and then use white space in just a creative way. So here again, you'll see that in the background, I do have that light image to kind of add a little bit of depth, but then I have this focal point image over here with a nice blue shape behind it. And then MPS has the added benefit of having fantastic imagery of cute and adorable kids, which also always helps. But you can see here with the slider that I kind of added this like image accent to their photography, which overall is just a nice way to make your images feel more cohesive, especially, you know, when you apply this concept throughout the website. So right here, you'll see their brand colors of the blue and the yellow behind these two images that overlap. And then this is actually a slider and the images change. And what I think would be really cool is that instead of the fade effect that we're seeing, if this shape just like slid and it had a different movement, but the Adobe XD was not plane friendly with me, so I couldn't get that to work. But that would be like just a nice little way to add some unique movement to the design. And then here we have a lot of call to actions. So to combat that, it's nice to use kind of a grid layout like this. But then what's nice is I was able to incorporate some of their imagery to kind of show their culture a little bit more. And it breaks up the color blockiness that we see with the yellow and the blue here. And then another fun thing that I mentioned earlier was the movement that you can do with hover effects. So here you might not expect to see a little bit of an image peek out behind when you hover over it, but it's like a little bit of a nice touch. And again, a little detail that kind of just makes it a little bit more unique. And then there's a little bit movement with the text as well. Okay, I think, yep, right here for the upcoming event section. One area that's always kind of fun to play with is the date. Because that content is the same length, it doesn't have a lot of variances. And so when you have your content and exactly what it is and what it looks like, you can get a little bit more designy with it because it doesn't need that flexibility of content length built into it. So here we can see the nice big date kind of helps break up these upcoming events. And then this is another nice case where, hey, we don't have an image for every council meeting that we have, but I still wanted to incorporate imagery or a visual element in some way. So here we just have a nice static image that doesn't change next to it. So no matter what upcoming event they list, they don't have to worry about finding an image that goes with it, but it still has that visual appeal of having a static image next to it. And then you can see that the colors of their brand is also embedded really nicely next to it as well. The last page that I'll go over is this careers page that they have. So again, I commonly try to find ways to adjust the layout so that you don't just have paragraphs of text spanning the full width of the screen. Again, it looks boring. It doesn't have great readability. So here we floated the paragraph content next to like this mini collage of images with a nice little icon that kind of hovers over the center. And this icon's smartly placed because it should not really cover up the focal point of any of the image content. So like it's in the corners and it just goes over this image a smidge. So no matter what images you use, the icon shouldn't distract that much, but it's just a nice way to kind of add that branded color palette in there as well. And then you're not going to always be able to use images to kind of help float that content a little tighter. So here we have this call to action that relies more on that bold color as well as that bold shape. And then another little trick to help make this website feel less stripy is that the stripe actually, this color change starts in the middle of this stripe. So it's very subtle. And it kind of tones down that like stripy feel that people don't really like all the time too. So when you can help make your content just flow a little bit more fluid like that from a design point of view, it just makes it feel a little more streamlined.
So with that, looking at the way that stripe is with the image overlapping in there, back over to Sydney again. on the implementation of these particular stripes. These look, just off the guess, a little bit more complicated, a little more challenging to do. Let's say you, Sydney, on kind of the implementation tips of how this would go about.
Yeah, so at first, we actually have not finished developing this yet, but I can see here, one of the things I'm seeing is you're probably going to want certain stripes in an order, right? Here we have a white one with the blue one in the middle and then gray. This would probably be okay if it was all white, but there'll be some scenarios where if, you know, we present you or we build you a design that has a sequence of things, and then you choose to pull one thing out of the sequence, you might have to make additional changes in order to make a layout still make sense.
And so when you're applying to these stripes, the benefits working at MPS is a stripe, and recruiting events is a stripe inside of your row. And the thing, you are inside of Titan, and this is for the people listening, you have to apply a class to it. So you go into the block attributes, which is something any end user can learn how to do. And then you have to just know which class to apply or set of classes. Is that correct, Sydney?
That's right. Yep.
And so,
or the block library, right?
well, yeah, the block library's got it all set up for you and you can visually see it. It's good. Otherwise, yeah, block library, then you don't have to do anything. Just drop it onto the page and change the content. If you didn't, then the way to approach this is somebody has to have designed this kind of ahead of time thoughtfully, like Jenna would, to say, here's the design philosophy and here's the range of all of the options for how you could lay out a page. And then if you're doing it manually, you can do all of this inside of Titan if the styles have been programmed in there. And once they're in there, then you just apply the styles. And as Sydney just said, if you decide to rearrange recruitment events and move it up further on the page for whatever reason, you might have a little bit of additional work to adjust the backgrounds and the colors so that it flows, you know, dark light, and so that you have continuity.
Mhm.
Any questions from any of the people listening out there? I know we have a bunch of people that are just kind of getting into Titan and kind of learning to see what the potential is. So, but if anything occurs to you, feel free to either raise your hand or chat or just interrupt us. All right, Jenna, back to you.
Okay, well, I'll wrap this up since I've taken half of our time. So here you have two calls to actions to get licensing information or a certification program to become a teacher or a substitute teacher here. So what's really nice is that instead of just having a single stripe with two call to actions in it, just breaking up that content into this nice blue color blocking and yellow color blocking. And then you can see that the shape right here is a little bit unique. It doesn't attach. It carries that roundedness that we saw throughout the rest of the design there. And then we overlapped it again with this image that breaks out of that rectangular shape. So this introduces a lot of unique shapes, plays really nicely with the white space. And then it's just a nice fun way to kind of have two calls to actions that are related show next to each other. And then again, here we have a single call to action that instead of leveraging an image to help make that content with a little more readable, we have this nice little graphic here that helps do that instead. And then we saw a quick link option on the first design I showed for CSSEA, where the image was in the middle, but here's kind of a different approach where we have, again, a fun little link style that showcases a bunch of links together, which is a lot more engaging and interactive instead of just like having those content links where it's just all listed and then there's an underline on it and the underline goes away and hover and it's a very short, simple, tight list. Playing around with those can be really hard to visualize, but once you get that layout right, it's just a lot more engaging and fun to look at. So I think that's everything I wanted to show, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Lori, Michelle, Ashley, any questions, thoughts? Is this something you guys could use, take advantage of?
I think it's something that we may be able to use. I'm not sure how much autonomy we have when it comes to changing the scope and the layout of our page, since we're part of a larger page group with the Department of Health and Human Services. I think some of the stuff that you showed was really cool and really nice. I think it's also a lot to take in one setting. And so if you have some cheat sheets, I would gladly appreciate those.
You bet. We also have,
Footnotes, something, but it was really nice.
we'll make these recordings available. So we'll break this up into little pieces so you can reference these. We'll send those out and put it in the library. So you can go back and watch them again. And so, yeah, knowing the potential, I fully understand every organization has some governance constraints as to what are the styles and stuff. But if we're hoping that if the potential, then you can ask for something and ask a couple more times. Maybe you can get some additional things added into a block library, and those styles become available to you so you could apply them. All right, we're going to take a little left turn and go into another question that we had, which was publishing content. So if you got all these beautiful pages that Jenna has laid out for you and Sydney has built and they're in your content library, that's great. Now you want to build out a new page for people, but you're not quite ready to go live with it. And so Gerry and I are going to give you a quick little demo of how would you build out a page so that somebody else could preview it before it goes live on the website. And so let me just kind of set the stage, and then we'll be redundant here a little bit. But so a couple different ways to do this. You could you normally, when you're inside of Titan, as Gerry has open right over here, you see your little tree or nav tree. He's on the Titan CMS 221 globe right now. He's got key features, licensing, customer stories, industry insights, and down on the very bottom of there, where his hovering is off nav. And so very often when people want to build something that is not quite ready to go live yet, you can build it on off nav. I want to be clear, you can build it, if you wanted to build a new About Us page, you can go into the About Us page and start making changes there, not hit publish. So at the very basic level, well, in fact, why don't you go over to the About Us page real quick, Gerry?
Sure.
So let's say we wanted to make a quick change over here. You double click and you're editing. So right now, this page under workflow on the very top in the green bar up in the top, there's no workflow turned on. So at the minimum level, what an end user could do would be to turn on one-step workflow, which means I'm going to publish this, but somebody's going to have to hit publish one more time before it goes live. And so there's an in-between stage where this page kind of lives in the not published stage, et cetera. You can actually do it with no workflow also with a save, correct? So if you're just working on this page, go ahead and let's make a change to it real quick. So just add a period or something onto this page here. Just do something really simple. And so he's added an extra period on the end of the sentence over there. He hits done. Now up on the top, the publishing is there. Now you can hit save. And that page will not be published. It won't be live, but it's ready for you to come back and finish it up tomorrow. And so if you look at it, there's only one period on the end. Oh, you hit preview. It's showing you, the preview is showing you what it's going to look like. But if you open up the live version, et cetera, on the site, it's going to have just a single period. Do we have the live version open?
Yeah, that is. So we
added
a period. I think it actually did. Even when we hit save, it actually does.
Oh, then we have to have the one-step workflow turned on. So you turn on one-step workflow, and after that, then it has to be approved one more time before it's going to go live and be published.
Yep. So I think a little maybe helpful information. This might apply to Ashley and Lori at least as content managers. One of the scenarios that came up this week too was the use of the field start date. So if you're building content that you don't want live until Wednesday, until tomorrow, 4/17, you want to be able to openly, kind of create that and set that start date to 4/17, so it'll automatically go live as of 4/17. Typically, without the workflow, when you click create, the moment you create a page, new page, you can preview that page and it's out there and it's live. And when you do that and go to properties, you kind of have to get, in order to set this start date to 4/17, you have to create the page and have it live. So the question was, how can we get this up and all set up and everything, and it's never been live? And so the answer is, like Patrick started talking about off nav, we can hide it in there and nobody would ever see the page, or we can turn on workflow for it one step. And when you create it, it's here and available and editable until you publish it. It's not visible until you publish it.
the off nav section is specifically, and you can name it anything you want. We've just been using the word off nav, means off navigation. That's not appearing in the navigation any place. We've been using that for 10, 15 years, but you can call it anything you want. It's just another part of the tree. So if you look at the Titan CMS site over here, there's no off nav in the main navigation across the top. So off nav means nobody can see it. And unless what that URL is. So that's kind of the beautiful thing. So now a decision to make. If you're building a new page like Jerry's doing, I used to clean it up here. So he's going off nav. And so he wants to create a new page. You have to say, he's going to build a sandbox page. In this particular case, he's going to build that page, not put anything on it, but he's also going to go and change the workflow on it right away to make it so it's a one-step workflow.
So I select it, go to workflow, switch to one step, and publish this.
Now,
And
any
now-
page he creates underneath it will require that one step. So by default, these pages are not live. So
So here we see
little-
subpage 1 as a child page of Jerry Sandbox, which has the one-step workflow.
and that little yellow, yeah.
Yep, we've got some iconography here that shows that it is not yet published. It's
So
an
now-
editing workflow state.
So if you wanted to go and build out a whole bunch of new content on that page and play with it and put content library on there and take a preview, you can still preview that page. So I think if you go into subpage 1 and add, say, hello world or something on there, and you hit done, you can preview this page. If we go click on the preview button, there it says page, hello world, it's all set. And that link that you see up in there on the URL, Jerry just copied it into his clipboard. You can send that to people that you want them to preview. Now, the caveat is if those people want to see that page, they have to have credentials inside of Titan, which can be set up. So if you say, all right, I'm making something for the Board of Supervisors at Milwaukee County, and I want them all to preview this link, then all 12 of them, you would give them login credentials so that when this page comes up in their browser, it's going to prompt them to log in. And the only thing they can see then is this page. And you can restrict all their rights, so that's all they can do is hit preview, but they would have an account inside there. If you don't care it's not in the public, so it's off nav, it's in Jerry's Sandbox. It's not visible to Google, it's not visible to the rest of the world. Nobody knows. You have to know that page is there. And if it's not super secret and you don't really have a whole lot of privacy or security concerns, then you don't have to use the workflow option. Just set it to no workflow and just have a private URL. Publish this, and now subpage 1 is visible live, but you have to know it's there. And so now you can email this link around to anybody that wants to see it, and they can go and take a look at that page and see what you're working on, and any pages that link off of that page. So you can build a whole subsection of the nav. So 2 choices. One, is this a private page? If so, turn on workflow and lock it down so nobody can see it. They have to have credentials to be able to see it. Or number 2, you don't really care, but it's secret. You have to know it's there. You have to know what that URL is. And if that's your level of security, then you can just turn workflow off and publish that URL just like Jerry's doing right now. Does that make sense? Did I explain that clearly, Jerry? Did that make sense to you?
Yep.
All right.
Any questions? Any questions on that?
I think Lori's got a question.
I do. I'm super interested in being able to publish something for future, post something for future publishing. So are you saying that if we just change the date and everything else is right, and then we publish, that just kind of happens behind the scenes without okay.
Yep, happens at midnight. So you got a new About Us page. So let's go and modify that About Us page or Hello World. Let's even do it right here on Hello World. That's fine. So we want
So if we
Hello
go to the
World
workflow properties and set this to the 17th,
tomorrow. So that's
publish. We have a
And-
new icon here that shows that it's waiting pending future start date. So you see there's even iconography there to show that off.
Yep. So at midnight, there's a process that runs inside of Titan looking for all these pages, and it will flip it over and make that page live. Otherwise, up until then, you will only see the version that didn't exist. So you got workflow turned off. So right now it says hello world. So let's say hello world Lori. Let's edit that page. So go to subpage 1. Just go to subpage 1 and make it add, yeah. And let's add something else in there. And so we have done. And so now if we publish this page, it's published, but it's published at a future date. So if we open the live version, in theory, it shouldn't say hello world Lori. It just says hello world. At midnight, if you hit refresh, Lori's gonna pop in there.
Now,
Of course.
I'm not sure if Milwaukee County is different, but I feel like we have a review panel that actually then has to publish something on our behalf. Like they sort of look it over, make sure everything's fine. So that might impact my ability to do that. I'm not sure.
Not at all. So you've hit subpage 1 and you've added Lori into the thing over there. Now I assume then workflow is turned on. And so somewhere in the workflow, if you have a 1-step or 2-step and somebody's reviewing this, they will have seen that page. They would have been sent a notice saying that page has changed. Go look at it. They pop it open. They're going to see the Lori version.
Yeah, but like if I do something late at night and they're not up, it's not during their work hours, could that impact what I'm hoping I can do?
Nope. So if you have 2-step workflow turned on and you have a future date put on there and you say it's going to go live on the 17th, that thing won't publish until the other person has approved it. So it has to, workflow rules all. So even though it's got a future date on it, you could put in there and saying, this is scheduled to go there and you're working on it late at night and it's still scheduled to go on the 17th. Well, on the 17th, that would not flip over until the final reviewer has gone and said,
Right. So that was that's for me a downside, but I don't know how often our reviewing team is checking our work, but I feel like we wait quite some time before publishing happens. And
yeah, just to be clear, that's not a Titan problem.
right. Gotcha.
So yeah, I can't fix that for you. But we could send out enforcers. We could call Luigi and have him go knock on some doors. All right. So that's kind of a quick tutorial on how to get pages published. And you can build out entire subsections of the site and have them all over there. And then the last step is if you have this subpage 1 that we wanted to do it, and it's built off nav now. So Jerry, how would I move that under the About Us section of the site? If it's all approved and everybody loves it. And so now we have Jerry's Sandbox off nav coming back up shortly. There goes subpage 1. Nope, still coming up.
Here we go. All right. So yeah, imagine you've got, a bunch of pages and subpages, a tree of a big site that's about to go live. So you select the parent item here, go to Actions and Move. And the Move dialog here allows you to set up your destination.
And usually it's real snappy, so we're
Yeah,
having
it has
a
been.
little hosting glitch here today. You pick your
Here's where we can
destination.
move all of that content over to About Us, where it would now be, a sub-nav item under About Us on the site.
And so what are those little save publish options over on the right-hand side there?
Well, skip workflow avoids all of the shenanigans of, all of those changes needing to go through all the 1, 2, 3 steps workflows. Assuming all the content has been approved and it's published. Yeah, you don't have to rerun the entire workflow. Complete workflow immediately means that it will publish the moment you click done. And publish immediately means it'll publish the moment you click done. Complete workflow immediately
Is it takes the current step of the workflow and finishes that current step and promotes it to the next step of the workflow.
Yep.
Okay. And then preserve original if you have a security assigned to that page, which isn't something we've covered at the moment, but if you did, it would preserve any of the original security settings that have been set on that page. Otherwise, it might inherit security from the destination that you're putting it in. So if you have different security on different sections of the site, different things are going to happen. But in this case, these are all public pages, so there's no security at all. All right, any questions? Well, I hope this was useful for everybody. So thank you very much for attending office hours. And if you have questions, submit them. We enjoy this as much as hopefully it's valuable and to a much larger audience than perhaps is online today. That's fine. We're always very happy. If you ask this question, there's at least 25 other people out there that are thinking the same thing. And we're happy to cover these and publish little videos of these sessions so that this is available to the general public. So thanks for making the Titan universe a little bit better place. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.